ambassadors for American business, people who know the culture, people who know the countries, and then they'll be able to open up markets, not just for themselves, but for all of American business. So that's what we're trying to do at the State Department. We're very much engaged in trying to create opportunities for American companies and trying to create opportunities for small and medium companies. 96%, by the way, of California companies that export are small and medium companies. So if we can do better by our small and medium enterprises, we will also do better by our economy, and we will end up creating more American jobs as we try and double exports in the next 5 years. So with that, I'm delighted to be here. I'll be available for those of you who are interested in learning more about this. But I hope that we have a chance to have a conversation and a dialogue, and I thank you very much.
Whereas before, we really didn't have that in our radar. So it is really an empowering kind of situation that I'm being left with, and for that I'm very grateful to everyone who's worked very hard to make this possible. And I promise you will hear from United Latino Voices of Contra Costa Economy in the future.
I just have a request. If there's more of these booklets, or I would like to take to share it with local organizations in the Sacramento area. But in addition, I want to thank you for the tremendous work you did in it. For me, it helped clarify a lot of issues that people have been asking me about that I haven't had the time to do research on. So it's more condensed, so I now can talk more intelligently about the issues, and hopefully use some quick skill to understand that we truly have a good leading president and the future needs better action.
This is a policy conference. Thank you very much. Great. And so for those who don't know, we do have a Facebook page, the White House Initiative. There's also a way you can get information. All those who are here will be added to the list. You'll be getting communications from the White House and the White House Initiative going forward if you have not done so already. So wanted to add that we do absolutely have social networking, and social network information is important to everything.
I really want to say thank you for those that listen. I'm Richard Lewis, definitely not a nonprofit. They sometimes call me Bruce Cannon. All of you are grassroots organizers. I'd like you to think about being a bridge builder, and the pieces are many, but I really enjoy coming. And my action step is to try to be my word and build that bridge on both sides of the border. So thank you for those who gave me the card. I'd like to just say that carrying the vision, that Dr. King didn't say focus on Latinos. He said all of you come together. They make it a better world. So we are all fortunate that this is a particular district of the Student Senate. I urge you to go on their web page, Student Senate, CCC, know that the Alameda president or the state structure is right in your area. So anybody gave me a card, my action step is to try to send PowerPoints, but not to have to create another board of directors and another nonprofit, but to ask you to create public domain. Means once it gets started, it doesn't have a trademark. King Chavez Legacy Team. And so go to Facebook and go King Chavez Legacy Team. You'll see we have people on both sides of the border. So please, if you believe in faith, if you believe in prayer, if you give a prayer for gainful good, I have to have young people first create new power. And I certainly got linked up to some young people who are here. So I really appreciate, Michael, the opportunity of being here. We have this vision, we got cancer.
Hear from a couple of people here in the circle with us. Once again, everybody in the second row, there's plenty of seats up front if you care to join us. It's going to be harder to get the microphone to you, so if you have any inkling for speaking whatsoever, I suggest you adjust your seat now to one of the front row ones. What we don't want to hear is a complete recap of your small group discussion. We don't need you to report out everything that was discussed, because
you may have noticed some very, very hardworking people that we want to thank, who are our note takers throughout the day with the laptop. Let's give them a round of applause. These folks really went above and beyond volunteering to type and type and type. That was in some of the small groups, and type. So we thank you for capturing all of those thoughts. Those reports will be reviewed by us, we'll clean them up, we'll format them in easy to read formats, and we will then redistribute them to everyone. So you all will see not just your conversation and what you all promised to do and what the next steps were, but you will also see the reports of all the other small groups. So the table you weren't able to join because you were so caught up in your conversation, you'll get to find out about. What we do want to hear from folks, though, what we would like to hear from a couple of people if possible, is perhaps some commitments. Some of the results, some of the outcomes of today's conversation, some of the things that folks may have committed to do as a next step, as a follow-up. If folks are going to meet again, if folks are going to do some activity, if folks are going to take some action, if folks are going to leverage some sort of resource, that would be great to sort of illustrate for us all sort of the kinds of things that we've been talking about today. So do we have any volunteers? Raise your hand, and either myself or my colleague Gabriel will bring a microphone over. We have the first volunteer. Here we go.
At our table where we were discussing how to increase diversity in STEM, we learned a great deal from each other. And one of the things I'm taking away, I'm going to go visit Delta College in Stockton, and they're going to probably come and visit us. And we definitely found that we have strengths in different areas, and so we would be able to collaborate and see how we can maximize on our strengths. My name is CAM2U01311.MPG, and I'm from Chicago College.
Excellent, thank you. So we have already some intercollegiate collaboration that's already being planned. Wonderful. Anybody else? All right, please introduce yourself again.
Hi, I'm Lynn Gardner with Horizons Family Counseling, and our session was on youth mental health services, and we collaborated on a number of items. We will do a follow-up phone call, conference call. It's going to be facilitated by Herb and his staff, and we'll work together on that, as well as he's going to come and visit Horizons, and there's some grant opportunity sharing that we talked about, and we'll be doing a lot of.
And ding, 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 we have a winner. We have a group that has secured a commitment from the federal officials for follow-ups. Yay! We have our first federal commitment. Can you see that? Good job, Lynn. More hands all that. Now that people think their prizes in that stake. The prizes are unending gratitude, just so you know.
Well, I got a commitment from Gabriel Stanford versus Cal. We decided that we're not enemies after all. But our discussion was around education rights, specific to English learners, as we are planning United Into the Voices of Contra Costa County as a coalition of professionals and leaders in our community are now committed to making this master plan implemented in our community. So there are a lot of issues that we came here looking for advice, for connections, for knowledge, for guidance, so that we are steering our community. We are the community organizers, and we are working at the grassroots, and we were looking for the federal connection. And I came here and I found what I was looking for, so we're going to get together and follow up on a plan to bring civil rights education on all issues, not just education, correct?
Rick Guerrero, CAM2U01311.MPG, and speaking of collaborating with the federal government, our group, which had to do with citizenship, voter registration, and immigration, we had a good discussion, particularly with USCIS. First, in terms of within the community organizations that were involved, making sure that we get the information on the Dreamer situation, and making the public aware that at this point there's nothing to apply for, making sure we have the information that the people need, and bringing up the fact that there are scams going on already. in terms of help. The best help should come from the community organizations themselves that aren't charging anything. But finally, also, we've got a commitment with USCIS to work on voter registration. They have the naturalization ceremonies that happen once a month in Oakland and Sacramento and other places, where we'll be doing voter registration at those events. So I'll be working closely with USCIS in coordinating those efforts. Completely.
Okay. USCIS holds naturalization ceremonies at all the districts, and we have people that will come to the ceremonies to do voter registration. The only people who actually goes inside the ceremony would be the local county Board of Elections. Right. But everybody who is interested, they can always stay out there, and yesterday there were at least 7 ironing boards outside the Paramount Theater, where we have partisan groups registering people also. So we are for people registering, doing their duty, to vote. But I just wanted to make sure that everybody understands that the voter registration, the official one is inside with the county elections. But again, we will work with you, we will tell you, if you need to know when we are going to have the ceremony, we'll let you know. Okay?
Yes, thank you for that clarification, because we are partisan. We want to make sure that we want to get everybody registered to vote, but at the same time, for example, at the voter registration, the new citizens we had at Sacramento, we registered 380 folks that day.
Thank you.
Just one more thing. One more thing. We, as a federal government agency, we cannot be engaged in partisan activity when it comes to voting. So I just wanted to make sure everybody realizes that. Sorry.
No, good point. That was underscored at the beginning. This is a policy conference, and
Department of Children and Family Services. And one of the topics that I would like to look at is Latino families that are involved with our child welfare system, specifically Latino children that come into protective custody, and working towards reunifying children with their families, being either locally or abroad in their native countries. Due to deportation of the parents, some of our children are coming into protective custody, and looking at getting their proper documentation prior to emancipation. So I'm hoping that there's more people in the area that would like to discuss that. Thank you.
And this is the immigration context specifically, or in general?
I mean, that's one issue when parents are deported, but just in general, reunifying children with their parents here locally. Connecting them with the resources, court orders.
Great, so we'll have a conversation at 12 o'clock with our colleagues from ACF, as well as Health and Services, and also some colleagues from the Department of Homeland Security to get that expertise. And this
here, and the issue I would like to address is we just finished, we completed a master plan for services to English learners for the Mount Diablo School District. The Mount Diablo School District is one of the lowest performing schools systems in Contra Costa, in our area. So the master plan for services to English learners is already done. It was a 9-month project. Now, I need to know how I can use the White House resources to leverage your resources to make sure that now we get implemented. We implement. Because we serve as the community group only as advisors. So the superintendent can.
Good morning, my name is Lynn Gardner. I am with Horizons Family Counseling. We provide counseling services to the Tri-Valley area. And a topic that I would like to discuss would be the fact that there are so many traumatic experiences in the lives of families in the Latino and Hispanic community. How do we get more resources and programs available to encourage those families to participate and gain access to mental health services? That's extremely important. And there is also the fact that research has shown that there is a direct correlation between trauma that happens to children when they are young and how many participate in the juvenile justice system. So we're trying to avoid them being incarcerated. We're trying to avoid them not being able to take advantage of the education and all the other services. So I'd like to talk about that.
Great, so we'll have a session at 12 o'clock focused specifically on mental health in the Latino community and how that affects and impacts issues of educational achievement and other societal matters. So that's going to be at 12 o'clock. We'll have our colleagues from the Department of Health and Human Services join that conversation. Thank you.
Hi, buenas tardes. My name is Paul Rodriguez. I'm from the San Francisco Bay Area. My parents are immigrants from El Salvador. I'm a recent graduate of UC Santa Barbara, and I'm fortunate and blessed enough to be a political organizer with the Service Employees International Union. While I think President Obama and Secretary Solis have shown a lot of leadership in extending basic labor protections for a lot of working Americans, I still think that there's entire industries that still lack access to a lot of those basic protections. And what I'm talking about are the domestic workers. Domestic workers are predominantly women. A lot of them come from immigrant communities. A lot of them are Latinas and Filipinas. They provide everything from health care to home care to our seniors, our youth, and their families. But at the same time, they lack access to those critical basic labor protections. Things like overtime compensation, things like access to meal breaks and rest breaks. And I think in California, where there is 200,000 domestic workers, we're not doing enough to show leadership that we value the livelihood and the labor of these working women. And we need to show leadership and show that we care about their labor and care about the work that they provide and the services that they provide to our state. And we need to demonstrate that we value the work of every working American, regardless of race, gender, and political status. So if we can focus on initiatives to better the livelihoods of these working women, then I think that
12 o'clock dealing with college affordability. We'll have our representatives from the Department of Education, Ken, and the next person, please.
Good morning, my name is Boyd O'Neill. I'm also known as Short. I am here from the California Latino Leadership Network. During the Reagan administration, on the steps of Congress, Huey Johnson said, in order for California to solve its problems, it is necessary to sterilize every Mexican woman. Words like that are very hurtful. And they call to mind that we are all here still, that we need to be organized in order to be able to solve the problems of society. The remedies and solutions that we said Latinos have been presented to the administration, and they have acted, as Mr. Marco Davis alluded to.
The packet, the lovely booklet there with the white cover that you have that held all your materials, that actually provides a lot more detail about the work that this administration has done in the area of education. But I want to tell you briefly about some of the key points of our education agenda, because I think it's worth repeating. First and most importantly, the President believes that to secure prosperity for all Americans, we must out-educate, out-innovate, and out-build our global competition. That's become harder than ever in our interconnected and ever-changing world. America once had the most educated workforces in the world, but in the last 30 years, we've slipped from first in the world to 16 in terms of the percentage of our adult population with a college or post-secondary degree. The President has articulated a bold goal that by the year 2020, we will once again have the highest proportion of college graduates in the world. And he's instructed his entire administration to seek ways to bring that about. And you've already heard about some of the efforts that relate to the education arena. It's critical to our success in improving our educational achievement. There are a great deal of challenges around improving education for all people, but most especially around providing a high-quality education for disadvantaged populations. The President and our Secretary of Education, Arne Duncan, have stated that education is the civil rights issue of our era. The The President also said that our country was built on and continues to thrive on its diversity. And there is no doubt that the future of the United States is inextricably linked to the future of the Hispanic community. So therefore, the education of the Latino community is critical not just to the success of Latinos, but for the entire nation. As Julie mentioned, in education, like in many other issues, the agenda for the nation is the agenda for the Latino community. The two are one and the same. Three key areas of the education pipeline where we're making strong commitments as an administration are early learning at the K through 12 level and in post-secondary education. And that's what I want to share in this very quickly. Early learning, I'm glad actually one of our volunteers came up and mentioned early learning. There's going to be a small group discussion on that because it's really critical. If folks aren't already aware of this fact, the years prior to kindergarten are among the most significant in shaping a child's foundation for learning and school success for the rest of their lives. It's a fundamentally important issue for Latinos because while Latinos are currently 1 in 5 of the entire public school population of the nation, 1 out of all 5 public school students in the United States in K through 12 are Latino. We are 1 in 4 kindergarten students. So we're a significant population in the early childhood age. And compared to other minority groups, we're less likely to be enrolled in center-based early education programs. Our communities simply don't have sufficient access to high-quality early learning services and programs. And this is why the President has called for and made increased investments in Head Start and established the Race to the Top Early Learning Challenge, which provided first $500 million last year, and this year an additional $133 million in funds for early learning programs and services, much of which will hopefully benefit Latino students. We're continuing to call attention to this vital stage of a child's development, and we will seek ways to bolster and increase investment in early learning for Latinos and other children. We've already begun conversations with peers and colleagues in the private and philanthropic sectors about ways in which they can partner with us and complement the work that the federal government is doing in this arena. In the K through 12 area, we know that the state of many students' education is actually cause for alarm. In many places, our nation's schools are in crisis. That's why this administration has taken unprecedented steps in trying to address both the overall quality and the specific inequalities in elementary and secondary education. Over the last 3 years, we've rolled out, frankly, a dizzying array of programs, funding investments, and strategies to try to address the state of education. And much of this work impacts our Latino students. And again, it's detailed in the booklets that you have. However, a few notable efforts include a targeted focus on the 5% of persistently low-performing schools that produce a disproportionately high number of dropouts, particularly among Black and Latino students. More than $4 billion in school improvement grants have been provided to try to help place a greater share of Latino students on track to college and careers. Our goal is to have all students graduate high school, college, and career ready. To that end, throughout this year, the Secretary of Education has been granting states flexibility regarding the requirements of the 2001 No Child Left Behind Act, allowing them to better focus on improving student learning and increasing the quality of education, while maintaining and even increasing accountability and measures of success, particularly for specific subgroups such as English language learners. Currently, there are more than 25 states that have been approved for this flexibility, and more are still being reviewed. Finally, there is a need to work with educators in rebuilding their profession and to elevate the teacher voice in shaping federal, state, and local education policy. The Department of Education recently launched the Respect Project, a national conversation about the teaching profession. This too is critical because our community is sorely underrepresented in teaching, and we know that there can be positive effects of having teachers in classrooms who share traits and backgrounds with students and have a sensitivity to their perspective and experience. And lastly, in the higher education arena, there's also been a tremendous amount of activity. We've increased the Pell Grant Award by nearly $1,000 to the state it's at now, which is roughly $5,500, I believe, $50. And we've increased the amount of Pell Grant funds available for Pell Grant recipients. It is now estimated that by the academic year of 2021, an additional 150,000 Pell Grants will have been made to Latino students. Latinos now represent the largest college-going minority population among college students. This is a 24% increase in Latino students, in the percentage of Latinos in college right now. We've simplified the FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid, so that more Latino students can access financial aid to pay for college. And just a few weeks ago, we announced the release of new information through our College Affordability and Transparency Center to help students know upfront how much college will actually cost them, and also be able to compare costs across schools. These measures, along with the outstanding efforts by leaders in local communities, have increased the numbers of Latinos attending college, as I mentioned. But we know that there's still more work to be done. There's a great deal of work to be done to ensure that we develop a new generation of Latino leaders who begin learning in a high-quality environment at an early age, who achieve academically and graduate high school, college, and career ready, who go on to some form of post-secondary education without incurring crushing debt, and finally, who achieve economic success that benefits their families, their communities, and their nation. So now it's time to get to work. Let's address these topics of education, of healthcare, of jobs in the economy, of immigration, and of any of the other issues that you're concerned about. The speeches are now done. We're going to transition to the open space process, where we will hear from you about what it is you want to talk about. And so for that, I'm going to invite my colleague, Gabriel Sandoval, to come up and lead this next portion. And thank you to all of my colleagues who joined us up here on the stage.
Because your doctor won't understand and will not be able to provide you the best care. It's a health disparity issue because you may not say things that you don't want your child to hear and have translated for your doctor. So that's a health disparity issue. It's also a civil rights issue, because going back to the 1960s, the civil rights laws have said that one group may not receive a federally funded service, healthcare funded by Medicare and Medicaid, in a manner that is inferior to that is received by the larger community. And the problem, as we talk today, is that in fact the Latino community has been beset by a number of health disparities. One of them is simply the access to insurance, one of the things that the Affordable Care Act will remedy for so many members of the Latino community. But a lot of those disparities are about more specific issues. So for example, Latinos are more likely to have kidney disease than the general community at large. Latinos are less likely to receive preventive services than the larger American community. And one that particularly breaks my heart is that Latinos with diabetes are many times more likely to have a foot amputated because of their disease than the community at large. And what that speaks to me is a lack of access to care, is that people aren't getting to the doctors early enough. And if you look at some of the scholarship that's been done in this area, that relates to, in particular, areas that have limited English proficiency. People who, because of language, because of geography, because of economics, don't have access to the care that they need. And so we're doing a number of things to combat that. We've heard a lot from Herb about the Affordable Care Act, which is going to provide preventive services, going to expand Medicaid, provide insurance to many who don't have it now. We're doing it in the Office for Civil Rights by enforcing those laws that say that health care providers that receive federal funds need to make provisions for language assistance for the people who are limited English proficient to whom they provide services. And we're doing it through the HHS Health Disparities Council, where among other things we are working on issuing the culturally and linguistically appropriate standards for healthcare, which recognize that in order to provide the most effective health care, one, patient and doctor need to understand each other, but also that patients need to receive services in the most culturally comfortable environment possible. My family's from Cuba. My family members, my grandparents in Cuba went to something called La Quinta. It was a place where you went and you got all your health care in one place. There was no go see one doctor, then go see a specialist, then go here, go there, and you got your health care in one place, which meant when you came to America, you had to learn a whole new, very complicated, very difficult system. And so when we talk about culturally and linguistically appropriate standards, it means we need to recognize those differences if we really intend to provide the best care to people. So I'm really looking forward today to having a conversation with all of you about what we can do to make health disparities a thing of the past.
Let's give our young folks applause. And having just gotten my AARP card last week, you can leave. Please stay. How many of you are parents? Grandparents? Great-grandparents? Okay. Oh, great-grandfather. Great. Anyone a great-great? No. I've had 16 as the 2.5 years of my job. But congratulations to all of you. In this country, we thought in the first 1.5 years of our federal health care law that 1 million young adults, 19 to 25, could go on their parents' plan. You know what? 3.1 million adults, young adults, 19 to 25, 435,000 Californians now have health insurance that didn't have it before that, and many of those are Latino families, but many more are eligible. How many of you are small business? Anyone work for a small business under 50? Nonprofits? How many of you are community-based organizations? Okay? You're small employers too. You don't have to be a for-profit entity. Tax exempt for that. The president has ensured that you today can get 25 to 35 cents off $1 of health care premium since the day the law passed in order to help you provide coverage to our Latino small businesses. And you know what? If you didn't know about it in 2010 or you didn't know about it in 2011, we'll get you to our colleagues that can give you that credit now. You can go back, amend your returns, and you can get the credit if you were able to provide insurance to your workers. But you know what? In 2014, when healthcare law comes in and we greatly expand coverage, those discounts, those tax credits for small businesses, 50 cents on the dollar for for-profit businesses, 35 cents for the tax exempt. Get your tax credits today. The third thing, now how many of you are Medicare eligible? Okay. Nice of you to raise your hand. We care deeply about our seniors and our people with disabilities on Medicare, correct? There are 6 million people overall in California, 3 million, if you will, that are in the membership of AARP, and there are 6 million in the general population that we're going to talk about in a minute in terms of preventive services. So here's the deal. High drug costs. I'm a person living with HIV. I know what high drug costs are like. I take 9 pills a day and I have taken medicine since 1991. We have 3.9 million Latinos in this country. You can estimate how many here in California, I have the numbers, who are eligible. 3.9 million Americans for free preventive services, cancer screenings, mammographies, pap smears, prostate screenings, woman care, and contraception care. We need to make sure that our Latino community, our families and individuals get those free preventive services. That's what federal health care reform is doing for you. And the other thing is for those seniors and people with disabilities on Medicare, okay, those high prescription drug costs, well, we're going to eliminate. Anyone here what the donut hole is? Under that health care law that was passed 2003, the Medicare drug law, seniors and people with disabilities who have a lot of drug costs, you know how much they had to pay for their prescription drugs? At one point, after they spent a lot of money, 100%. No senior or a person with a disability should ever have to choose between food and medicine. And the Affordable Care Act eliminates the donut. And they're all
communities need those smaller dollar loans to get a break. So we've rolled out a new program called the Advantage Loan Program, and that is working through community-based nonprofits that can make the streamlined loans up to $250,000 to companies in their areas. The second C, counseling. We have a network of 14,000 business counselors around the country, and if you are starting a small business or have a small business and don't have a business counselor, I really encourage you to get one, because we've seen that with just 3 to 5 hours of time spent with a business counselor, companies have more revenue, more employees, are more successful just by putting in that little bit of time investment up front. We've trained 100,000 Hispanic customers this year. We want to do more. So please spread the word in your communities that we're here to help, and the help is free. These mentors it is a free service that we provide.
So the last thing I want to do is just a few acknowledgments. We really appreciate all the gratitude folks have shown, but the truth of the matter is that this is what we're supposed to do. This is our job. This is those of us at the initiative, this is our day job. This is our responsibility, right? This is what you, the American taxpayer, paid us to do, is to put together these events and to respond to you and to work with you. There's a tremendous number of other people who made this day happen that we really can't go without acknowledging. And we really do have to show appreciation for. And it's quite a bit, as you all saw. This was quite a production. And so we've already thanked, but I think it's worth thanking again the young people who graciously stepped up and volunteered and took notes diligently all day long. So we thank you all once again. A good number of them are, I believe, participants in the District Attorney's Justice Academy. Is that correct?
Yes.
So we thank you all for being here. We thank the program for lending you to us for the day. We want to acknowledge all the volunteers who helped with registration. We're really diligent there all day. We made sure you got all your packets and all your materials. I'm not sure if any still remain. I think some might. But we also want to thank the volunteers who were here with the simultaneous translation, who had the equipment, and who provided the interpretation services. We really appreciate that as well. We want to thank all the people who contributed to making today happen, to providing the water and the breakfast receptions and the lunch and sort of all the resources and investments that went into doing that. So we're grateful to you all for that. We want to thank the many, many places, people, and offices here at Las Positas College for lending us this wonderful venue, for the tech team for giving us this tremendous, incredible AV. I think this is our first time with Jumbotrons. I'm sure we've had that before. You all should know, speaking of social media, they also streamed all of our morning up until the open space pitches and recorded them on Ustream. So actually the morning session you can review, you can share with colleagues who didn't come. You can find it on Ustream, on the initiative channel, which you can find through going to our Facebook page. So we thank them for contributing in that way. We want to thank our extremely quiet, extremely helpful public safety officials who were here with us all day, who looked after us and made sure they're Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Thank you, Julie. Thank you to our distinguished guests and speakers this morning. We're really excited to be here. As Julie mentioned, I'm the Deputy Director of the White House Initiative on Educational Excellence for Hispanics. We are extremely excited to be here this morning to join you today for a productive day focused on community solutions and action. We've got an incredible schedule prepared, packed with activity, and I'm going to go through that in just a few minutes. But let me first tell you briefly a few things about this summit and how it came to be. The White House Initiative on Educational Excellence for Hispanics was charged by the President with engaging the Latino community to find ways that the administration could learn about issues and challenges being faced and partner with local communities to support their efforts and bring federal and other resources to the table for positive change. So in July of last year, in conjunction with the White House Office of Public Engagement, we held the White House Hispanic Policy Conference, where we brought together about 160 leaders from Latino communities throughout the nation to Washington, D.C., and to the White House, where they met with senior Obama administration officials.
And hopefully we will keep our talking at you to a minimum and instead really begin to engage in much more constructive dialogue about ways that we can really partner and ways that we can really roll up our sleeves and work together. So with that, I would like to invite up Michael Davis, who's the Deputy Director of the White House Initiative for Educational Excellence on Hispanics, to share with you all a little bit more about what our day has in store, but really appreciate the time that you all have taken from your jobs. We know that all of our schedules are busy, and so we value the time that we get to share today. Thank you very much. Neighborhoods through the Neighborhood Stabilization Program, our Promise Neighborhoods Initiative, and I know that Hayward was a recipient of a planning grant for Promise Neighborhoods Initiative, and we're helping to ensure that good schools and affordable homes are part of our broader community development strategy. And on the immigration front, which I'll speak more about in a minute, the most recent announcement by the Department of Homeland Security to lift the shadow of deportation was the right thing to do. Right now, right now, and many of you all know these young people that are studying in our schools, playing in our neighborhoods, and pledging allegiance to our flag. They are Americans in their hearts and minds, and in every single way except on paper. They were brought to this country by their parents, sometimes even as infants, and yet they live under the threat of they have lived under the threat of deportation to a country that they may know nothing about, nor even speak the language. Now, this is also the first time that I'm speaking at a Hispanic Summit since the Supreme Court decisions on the Arizona law known as SB 1070 and the Affordable Care Act. On SB 1070, we were really pleased that the Supreme Court struck down key provisions of Arizona's immigration law. What the decision helped to make clear is that Congress must act on comprehensive immigration reform, and that a patchwork of state laws is not a solution to our broken immigration system. In fact, it's part of the problem. But we remain concerned about the remaining provision that still is intact, known as Section 2. But the court made clear that Arizona may not use Section 2 to engage in racial profiling. And going forward, we must ensure that the state of Arizona and Arizona law enforcement officials do not enforce this law in a manner that undermines our civil rights of American citizens.